star, immediately blew somebody up and was like, okay, now we can win the game.
It's time for our next battleground. Team Freedom in winning the last game. Likely, well, it's even in death who gets to choose if they want battleground or first pick. They pick battleground. So we will go to Tomb of the Spider Queen.
That is, you know, I don't know. With even in death being the one who gets to choose and going towards map already is an outlier towards North America. That every North American team now was almost 100% we're going for first pick, especially I think after the midseason brawl, because it's only convinced more of like the meta interpretation as accenting that of first pick. So I'm thrown off by this, but I don't know if I dislike it again, because it's like if I'm this team and I truly want the most valuable experience whatsoever, it's probably better to take them to places I know, where I know I can draft solid and just see, you know, where do I measure up against Team Freedom?
What do we think about Team Freedom on Tomb of the Spider Queen? Anything immediately stand out for you?
No, nothing other than Nazebo. That's it.
Yeah.
That's the only thing, and that was more two teams in North America bussing it out in only specific circumstances, and this was one of the maps for one of those teams. It's not even that big of a deal.
It is a battleground where other teams will play Diablo, so maybe we see even in death pick Diablo again for Tomb of the Spider Queen. Game number 2, draft number 2, Team Freedom considering Uther.
They are. Is that so strong as to think that they would be willing to first pick at the mouth?
I am so
No
in
way.
disbelief that Freedom did not get Malfurion last game that I don't know what to think.
I think that 100% means they first pick Vala, is what I think that means. Why? Is because you want that a part of your holy. It's either that or you go with like the Holy Trinity force of some kind. But the reason why Vala is because that's the key of the Holy Trinity. You pick that first. You pick up the other ones later. But it does seem risky to go into that. We'll find out. The Uther removed, and Noob removed. To be fair, if this again looking at the midseason brawl, wouldn't assume that it's a first pick Malfurion, but it's the first time we've seen Uther banned in the first ban phase out of all of NA so far. So that's why it's like, so does NA go, we have to pick Malf? Apparently not. We hit the pause button, we go with Genji.
That's not what I was expecting.
Both just beep boop. Both not really adding up there. Stitches to Haka makes sense, again, according to the logic of what we know in the World of Warriors.
Yep.
But the Genji seems weirder for me than anything. I expected that to be just any other hero. Considering it's a map where Genji, he doesn't provide anything to the map itself. He does nothing other than I can kill my opponents, which is not really that important on a map like Tomb of the Spider Queen. So I thought with the Uther ban being an outlier, the map being the first time we've seen it, no way that was a Genji, but Freedom is going to put Cure back on the carry monster.
What else do they get here? How much of an issue is the Warriors at this point? Not being able to get a noob, not being able to get Stitches? Is that something they can leave to later? Okay.
Yeah, you give up on him now. You don't commit to him unless you really need the Johanna pre-ban phase. Would be the only thing I see yourself committing to. They go with a Diva. IMO, don't count that as a tank. She's just a skirmisher, a brawler, bruiser. Put her as like a Sonya kind of ish if you were to gauge what does she mean for the competitive meta.
So what is the difference now for Freedom that they pick Malfurion?
So I actually had an argument for this when you brought it up, and I forgot to say it the 2 times you said it before. It's Guardian of the Ancient Kings. So you didn't want to proc Guardian into the Uther high prio on the other side, and now you've picked it, so you're essentially not afraid of the Guardian.
They were both played so much at midseason brawl that I don't really.
It's a skill matchup, right? I view it as like Malf is too good to say no to overall. Unless you have a hyper carry like an Illidan that gets enough value out of the Rhaegar to justify, or Rhaegar accents the map like a thing like Infernal Shrines. But I do agree with you that like it seemed weird, but that was in my head why. Yeah. Especially once we see it here, it goes 100%. They view it as, do they have Guardians? If no, let's go Malf.
Okay.
That feel when Guardian of the Ancient King is so impactful, it single-handedly can determine whether or not a team will pick a hero. Crazy the amount of impact that talent has. Rhaegar banned out. Ariel, Vala.
Still up. Made it through all the way to here on Tomb.
It's a map where that play will get way more value as well. Stitches isn't bad with it. Your opponents essentially force you into it, but like, let's be honest here. If they ban 2 bans and picked a pick to get you into that area, that's 3 slots in a draft. You would view that is literally best case. Best case. That is not a force at that point. I go free win, boys. 3 slots in a draft.
What about Greymane Kael'thas? Ooh, Stitches Kael'thas.
Okay, I see you. Oh, I see it. I see it. So now it's
Dignitas
essentially,
in here?
yeah, you essentially are going with the KT Gravity Labs burst combo with Cursed Bullet. Okay. Not what I expected here, but I can see the direction. I like it.
I like it too.
At least to see the mix-up, especially for a team like Even in Death. The last thing I wanted to be like, just be like, they're going to pick what they pick, and we'll just see if it works, and not, you know, at least that it's just like, well, we know this core strategy. It didn't totally work. Let's go with another, you know, internationally respected core strategy. I mean, it's very a dig strategy, a Dignitas one, but it doesn't mean that only Dignitas can draft it, you know?
I don't know. It might be patented.
I'll call a bakery. I'll ask.
Okay.
Has JPL decided to go ahead, JPL Mene, go ahead and get the Stitches KT French follow-up dream, patented or not?
What's happening with Zugrug?
I feel like Nazeebo is just going to pop up here somehow.
Nah.
What
if it's Li Ming again? Lunara this time. Johanna.
All right. The JoJo makes a lot of sense. I personally have felt like in this meta, with it being so wave clear focused, like, or with it so lack of wave clear and so offensive, that if your opponent wants to force you at all into a Johanna, most of the time, especially when I have a Vala, I actually really don't mind the Johanna anymore. Because wave clear heroes are so weak relative to everything else in the road, Johanna is more appealing now than she's almost ever been. Like, I am way less likely to be like, oh, not Johanna, like I used to. Then I'm like, oh, yeah, this... Sure, go for it, especially, again, with the resources committed on the side of Even in Death.
One last pick for Even in Death. It is the support, Houndwin. What do I have him playing here?
I mean, you have no Rhaegar, you have no Uther, you have no Malfurion. You have to go with Karzim is like one thought to get the isolated damage. Brightwing is not that good. Medic is absolutely terrible. Tyrande is legitimately laughable. I'm so glad that wasn't a Tron. Can you imagine? It's such a me thing to do. Like, just Tyrande, there's no way, and then
especially when you use the phrase legitimately laughable and then it's picked. Well, maybe. It would combo with the full blow-up composition of a Hook, Lunar Flare, Gravity Labs. But you've got Gravity Labs for that, right? As long as Stitches and KT are hanging out together, you have that follow-up.
It's just what Tyrande does now is she used to be like a bad support, but so much offense. You were like, she was so good at offense, it became defense, right? Now she is worse at her offense, and she's worse at her defense. So, like, it's just like, if you see that locked in as a Tyrande in that position, you just go, somebody else could have done that better. Like, since the rework, what we've seen, and until she gets majorly adjusted, it's just no way. The Karazim's nice. It can deal with the Lunara, but it's one of those. I did get support choked, but again, 3 slots in a draft, Gilly. Did I really get support choked? Feels good.
All right, Team Freedom, pretty similar draft. The Genji Diva pairing again. This time we've got Collusion back on Malfurion. That is A+ in my books. Love seeing his Twilight Dreams. And then Lunara this time instead as the backline. I'll be able to have a lot of follow-up later on once her poison really sets in the later game. Even in Death, though, completely different draft from Game 1.
Yeah, the fact that they have such a different draft is a really good sign for this team. A lot of hope. I just hope it continues for their drafting, just to see them adapt, see them try different strategies, and be willing to execute on different strategies. Not like, you know, we only run the all-in 5-man deathball comp, and hopefully that works every game. Again, this is a way better perspective than I expected to see from this squad.
Well, let's see if the execution is on point as we head into game number 3 between Even in Death. This is game number 2, and Team Freedom.
I did the same thing in game number 1, actually. I sat there and I was like, is this game 2? Because this, in my head, this is game 2. So the fact that you did it, hello? How did both of us add a secret game? I don't know.
That Towers was just so full of everything you would want, constant brawling, that it felt like 2 games in 1.
It did. Level 1 talents for the teams. Nobody's mixed anything up too much. Mana Addict for Kel'Thas. He doesn't have a norm. He's just got 3 situationals where, so going into the Mana Addict, it's a small map. It makes sense. I personally think it's any time you can get this on any map where it's reasonable to get globes, it's the best level 1, but we do see some argument for, I'm a guess with this one. Hold on. It's like Felon Fusion, something like that. What is this crazy one? What is this crazy level 1?
Felon Fusion.
I nailed it?
Yeah.
Feels good. Sorry, you got to take 1 risk per broadcast. That was mine. I'll go ahead.
All right, I'm going to mark it down. The weirdest thing for me is seeing Homicidal play Greymane and Frozen X be the Dahaka player based on the Illidan and Ariel play of last game. So I'll be keeping my eye on how this team flexes into a draft. Some flexing is good, but when you are forced to flex depending on the drafts, that's when things get scary, and you can get drafted into a hole later on.
Yeah, it is a really interesting dynamic. Cure has actually been very effective at being annoying so far on this map on Tomb. The better he can do, the more he can do that, the better. It does seem weird to be like, well, he's not really changing the outcome, but he legitimately doesn't do anything to the objective. So just being annoying like that is about as high impact as a laning phase Genji can get outside of being follow-up to a beautiful kill.
Maybe scare away his opponents from trying to go for a pick somewhere.
Rotation up in the mid is a full 4-man. D.Va has remained up on bottom. That's the 3rd drag missed by Frozen X out of that bottom shrub. Granted, he's aiming for rough targets both times, but it's just, again, one of those things immediately that stands out to me in this game. We got to keep our focus on, because if it doesn't change, it's going to really set back even in death here.
We'll talk about ideal targets for the hook. As long as D.Va is in her mech, she's got boosters to run away. Genji obviously has a lot of options, but this one's pretty good. Lunara has that extra movement speed with being a Centaur, Dryad. Last time I said that, I got in trouble on Twitter.
How dare you? How dare you?
But in that instance, pretty good to be able to catch a Lunara. That gives even in death first blood.
Yeah, but Battery's completely just body blocked to death, giving a reset over to Cure. He might get another. He actually is going to get 2? Ooh, man, if that heal had been half a second later for How to Win, that could have been a double reset dream. Going for the lineup here, but 32-32 when looking at the banks of the gems, but 18 just turned in for Team Freedom. Lunara has the leaping strike post 10 if she goes into that direction,
yeah.
But other than that, everybody else is very vulnerable to, vulnerable up until Mouth gets ice block. And then, JoJo is JoJo. If she has her cooldowns, she will always survive. If she doesn't, she will always fail. That's not true. She's got indestructible. Once she gets indestructible, she'll always live again. There it is. Gravity lapse.
Deflect, hook, catches collusion. The roots were there. Yes, Malf has ice block, but it's still like pulling in and then ice block on the point.
Yeah, you're arguing that the displacement before is enough to make ice block even that much worse of an answer.
Potentially.
But the counter argument would be, well, in a perfect world, what if I ice block before? Then I get the dodge and I'm never out of place.
Which one has a lower cooldown?
Yeah, you're right. You just look me in the face and just with the grin, like, say it. Who has the shorter cooldown? Oh, when you have your opponent in checkmate before you even have to admit it there.
But it's a good point, right? If you block that one, then the hope is maybe you just won't be in position to be hooked a second time. Fool me once, fool me twice. That ordeal.
You also could have the, Homicidal Genji Greymane follow-up. We've seen that interaction enough. One dash on out, and then suddenly Greymane goes all the way on over, especially post 13. You can get some wild interactions between those. Any point-and-click gap closer plus Genji equals good time. We haven't gotten to talk about, which I wanted to see so very much at the mid-season brawl, or anytime we see D.Va and now that Stitches is in the meta, just hooking, pulling, anything to do with mech. to make it either useless or extremely useful, like with the helping hand, something.
That actually happened last game, and it was really funny because one, Battery actually flipped it closer to his team, the mech, but then Frozen X was like, no, we don't want that, and Detainment Strike it away. But it is fun to see those interactions. I've tried Helping Hand, well, I was playing the Diva, but my friends and I tried the Helping Hand with it too, to try to drop it and then pull it into position. It's kind of difficult.
We saw the combo attempted to be executed there. Not enough damage follow-up to be able to get the burst. That is not something you typically feel comfortable saying. Like, if that gank happened like that and somebody survives, with most compositions you just go, well, you know, we didn't have the gank, but you picked Kel'Thas Stitch's duo with the follow-up from Karzim for a very apparent reason. That Dignitas, the only reason this is their meta is because their execution is literally near flawless.
Yes.
Every time a hook hits, there's always a follow-up, and the damage is almost always there. So even in death, that was only a small, minorly sloppy window, but if they continue that trend, it's going to be a thing that stops them from being able to win this game.
Nasmus used self-destruct to clear out the minions and the mercenary camp so that the Web Weaver can do more. And this is the first Web Weaver phase of the game, Team Freedom, hoping that they can use this to get back in the experience game. They were falling behind slightly from Even in Death, but even more so, hope that they could snowball off of this. But the defense has been really good from Even in Death so far.
Yeah, it has. It's been slow. Lutano up on top is not who you want off on his own. Some form of cycling out. Greymane into Haka up on bottom. Look like they're going to pay some kind of attention to the other parts of the map. They move on out. Man, dude, that was a lot, honestly, for Team Freedom to be able to make happen. The fact that that rotation for Even in Death was that slow, and it's still not committed.
Yeah, it started out really good, but now getting enough towers to give Team Freedom
That's
10.
so weird. Because you're right, it started, the first like 20 seconds was like, this is exactly what you want. But then again, the last like 45 was like, okay, somebody needs to be mid. Okay, somebody needs to be up on top. That it's just really strange to see that shift for Even in Death, even in this game. 22 gems now offline.
That is
How to win. He's like going in.
He's got it.
He got him.
He took it.
Wolverine showing why he's on top of the game here. But there is now 75 gems in the bank for Even in Death if they can confirm a turn-in. They've got their heroics. Curse Bullet. Dahaka has to go Adaptation, right? I mean, and then Curse... Stitches can go both. You can go into Bile, you could go into Gorge. Bile's the safe route, but you can make a Gorge argument. Hami getting caught out.
Frozen X is going to run around too. Team Freedom has been slowed down in their second turn-in because they lost gems earlier in one of the picks. And it was just enough, actually, for Even in Death to get 10, go in, sneak a turn-in because so much was devoted to taking out Greymane. So Even in Death will have a turn-in. How much do they do with it? They've got to get Greymane out and about. The waves are pushed to about halfway. Thornwood Vine, so no Leaping Strike.
Yeah, which means no escape.
Yeah.
You know, another vulnerable target to the Stitches combo. That is one of those situations where it comes down to like not only the argument of like what's the better team fight, blah, 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 but just looking at it like is Even in Death's win condition so focused onto getting picks that it would be worth the lose your value of team fight to avoid the Thornwood Vine and go into the Leaping Strike or not. We'll find out. We'll see if Freedom, if at any point, especially in the later parts of the game, it goes, you know, that would have been able to save the Lunara, we might be able to say otherwise. But for now, it's just been a turn-in phase that has been easily stopped by Team Freedom.
Drag. Close but no cigar. Even in Death, get a turn-in. It's cleared out. No forts down yet in this game.
Yeah, even Freedom is just, with this Web Weaver phase, I'm pretty sure they're going to open up the map. This is a lot like what we saw over the last series, it feels like, with the play. Freedom is just better, which is understandable. In this series specifically, very understandable, just off of the experience that Freedom has learned and earned over the past while of phase number 1 of HGC North America. But even in Death, you can see that they have the idea with the draft, they have the compositional, but this is now the second time a full level has existed over to Team Freedom, and Even in Death hasn't done anything to deserve being a level down. And I expect this to continue to all 3 games unless Even in Death makes some major risk, and it actually is going to pay off directly.
Yeah, that's about the main thing that I noticed, or that happened to me or them in the Crucible, was that teams, No Tomorrow specifically, were able to out macro Even in Death pretty well. And in this case now, Team Freedom are doing just what you said you expected them to do, which is to open up the battleground. They've taken out 1/4. They still have Cure in the mid, while the rest rotate here to the top. Using that 13, the threat of having to fight down a talent tier. They're even going to go for the fight after that too. Boosters in from Nasmus. Did not drop self-destructed time. 7-sided strike. Nasmus is so close to going down. Homicidal gets her.
But look at that Twilight Dream from Collusion setting Cure up to go in. Can he get one more? The dash, he gets it. Will he risk going over the wall, though? He does.
Yes.
There's one. He is out. Love it. Cure. Man, he is freaking ripping apart.
Oh, man.
Love him on the Genji. And look at that Web Weaver. Still yet to be cleaned up on bottom. 2-level lead here coming out for Freedom. And they've almost got enough for another turn-in. They're going to stack Boss on top of it. This looks like the beginning of the end for this game for Even in Death.
That it does. Team Freedom playing the early game calculated, and it's understandable to play early game more passively and more calculated when you are up against the Stitches Kael'thas, because it's likely that Freedom really has no idea how well Even in Death can execute that type of composition. It can be brutal to play against, especially on Tomb if you lose too many picks in a row because of the snowball factor of turn-ins.
It especially comes down to how much you know about your opponent, right? Nice gravity lapse. Cure got the deflect out, so he's going to be able to survive. But it not only comes down to that, but it's also more of how much do these teams see one another, know about one another, because if you are Freedom and you don't know much about Even in Death, you a lot of the times would be just playing safe off of purely just not wanting to risk anything and be like, how good actually are these guys? Freedom wouldn't be sending a message maybe to their audience and their fans, the best one of like, this is our skill level compared to them, but it's the smartest for them to be like learning about what is Even in Death think, how do they feel, how do they tick, so that later they can just be even more dominant. See the value of the 13 talent here right there. And Cure just trades up into Even in Death so heavily that it forces the mana addict to 1. The shielding there and zoning away from the bottom Web Weaver.
Even saw just the tip of the helping hand. Like, hey, maybe I'll be able to reach and save my teammate.
When it comes to 16 talent tiers on the side of Team Freedom, everything that they have taken is expected. You know, just generally, the 16 on Johanna can fluctuate a smidge, but nobody is going to go too wild here. No crazy flavor. Battery maybe caught out, force the bile. Oh, look at that blessing. Oh man.
My, that self-destruct Twilight Dream. It is the dream. Cure's there. Gravity Lapse stops.
See that scorched flesh, or burnt flesh? Scorched? Either way, the damage there coming out from KT. Hitting multiple targets with his level 7. And 57 gems for Even in Death. 1 minion wave away, and they will have themselves a turn-in. But without the 16 talent here, they're going to go in trying to stop the members of Team Freedom. Nasmus goes down. Battery's going to be the first to actually drop those. That was merely the mech frozen. Sorry, man. Just not got to have the HP to survive this. And now it's another Web Weaver phase going over to Freedom.
Freedom getting further and further ahead in this game. 8 kills to 3. I like, though, the playstyle that we're seeing from Nasmus's D.Va with the Torpedo Dash, knowing that he can go in. Yes, he maybe sans his ability to self-destruct, but because he has that little bit of extra ability to disengage from a fight, he feels like he can still get in and draw some aggro away from the other team members while they try to get kills.
I love this rotation for Freedom. It's about as good as it can get, as long as either Genji and D.Va move mid or everybody else moves bottom. Just as long as they 5-man commit the minute the Web Weavers actually get to a relevant positioning is the most important thing. D.Va after this wave, we'll see if they cycle it out, but there's really nothing Even in Death can do. It's a double keep play, minimum. They're gonna instead go for a 1-4 by committing up on the top. Helping Hand's gonna be a nice save. Even in Death, you go top or you go bottom. Looks like they go bottom.
Nasus is there, but can booster through the sidewall, killed in the mid.
Now the members cycle back through mid. Then when the members respond to top, which the keep's already dead, that's when you see the members of Team Freedom all in through mid keep. The double keep play.
There's self-destruct available from Nasmus. He can use that to zone away.
He drops it. They move up. Even gonna let him mech up in their face again. There they go. Even in death, trying to stop it. Hook down. And that's it. That's all their initiation. It's gravity lapse, it's hook, or it's burrow drag.
Keeps down. Team Freedom willing to go back in for potentially a final fight.
Oh,
Twilight
Twilight Dream. That's Genji with the first reset. He needs another here, but he goes down. Cure going out a bit too far, not having this heals and the support. Talking about support, nice cleanse for Collusion. The flash did not seal the deal on a Nasmus. He has his mecha back online. And Gilly, they not only stop the double keep play, but they have enough gems for a turn-in. Even in death, still holding on longer than we expected in both Game 1 and Game 2. I'm not sold that they have the ability to turn this around just because a fort is still yet to be taken, but it is still just the, you know, that even in death, or Freedom hasn't been able to put it to rest.
Yeah,
Pre-20.
The big issue is that 20.
Yeah.
And the minute Team Freedom get that, they can turn right around and throw the aggression back. So all they're doing is keeping the lanes pushed, maintaining vision. Even in death, have a very short amount of time to turn in their gems, get that turn in, try to hold off Team Freedom until 20 is achieved on the other side.
They're afraid of the boss. They're going to scout it. All right, so now, okay, this is their force. This is the way to be like, Team Freedom, please come fight us. Frozen X scouts. Halfway.
Dragon Blades up, Twilight Dream in 4.
They commit
There's the
to
drag.
fight.
Cleanse used to save Dansky.
Nice damage. Nasmus throws down the mecha. Look at Homicidal. He's trying to run away. The damage hits him. Genji
Dragon
goes
Blade!
in. Look at the 7-sided. The damage is there. And 2 members of Even to Death are already dead. Twilight Dream comes through. Gilly, I don't know if you've ever seen a team get absolutely ruined, but in case you didn't, you can go drop back 10 seconds. That was crisp, baby. Look at him go.
From the self-destruct location to the Twilight Dream with the Dragon Blade follow-up. Team Freedom showing why they have wanted to stick with this D.Va and Genji composition for 2 games straight now, taking out Even in Death. Game number 2 on Tomb of the Spider Queen. Maybe prompting some sort of a change in bans or picks away from Team Freedom now after seeing how well Freedom can execute that combo.
Yeah, you know, Kira's Genji. Don't know if we're going to see ourselves with that one again in game number 3, especially after putting an argument to it on small maps even, just with how impactful he was purely off of his Dragon Blades. Like, ignore the laning phase, ignore the rotations, just the wee. It was too good.
I know his Dragon Blades were awesome, but my favorite part was when he cyber agility'd over the gate, got the kill, got out. That was really awesome.
Yeah, anytime we can see flashy play out of Kira, it's always, it's a good time.
It is.
You know, it's just nice that we get it on a actual consistent basis. You know, it's not like, oh, is a member of HGC North America getting a sick? Call up Cure, the boy, put him on the line. We need you. The hero North America deserves, maybe not needs, but hey, I'm in.
He was the hero that Freedom needs, and they're doing well with him. Up 2 games in this series. We'll see if they close out the series versus Even in Death after this break.